Ciao Blender artist! This is the fifth part of the tutorial where we will smooth the chair model in the fourth part. This week we will use modifiers and we will learn how to work in a non-destructive way. Let's start. We have the chair that we modeled last time, and today we will add details and we will give it colors. So to open the file, you simply have to go to File, Open, or Open Recent if it's one of the last models you worked on, or you simply drag and drop into the Blender icon your file. So now we model our chair. We can go back to the outliner and we can place the plane into a new composition, into a new collection. Sorry. We select the plane, we press M. Let me see if the screencast is active. It is. So we press M and we move to a new collection that we are gonna call Elements. For the chair, as you can see, I have a series of cubes. You can rename them accordingly to the part of the chair. We don't really have to at the moment. What I want to do now is hiding the references and the elements because I just want to focus on the chair. So the first thing that you notice is that the edges are extremely sharp. I mean, if you put your hand on such a sharp edge, you would cut yourself. So the thing that we want to do is smoothing them a little. We can add geometry, so we can simply enter into edit mode. We can select all the edges of our chair, for example. So I press, or actually we can select the edges we want to smooth. In this case, we can do this one. We can press Ctrl B to add a bevel and simply bevel them. But we add geometry, and the more geometry you add to your model, the more hard it is to manage your model. So if you want, for example, to scale this part now, it's gonna be harder because you don't scale just two edges, you scale 1, 2, 3, 4 edges. So I go back to the point where we just have one edge, and luckily we have a modifier that allows us to scale our we have a modifier that allows us to add detail to our model without really destroying the mesh, and this is called non-destructive modeling. So if you can use a modifier, try to avoid to add geometry or other parts to your mesh. So we have our central part, and we hide the mirror, and we add a bevel modifier. What the bevel modifier does is simply the same thing that we did before, but in a more manageable way. So it adds geometry in between edges. I show you a little bit better. So as you can see, I added the bevel under the mirror. In Blender, the position of the modifier counts a lot. In this case, it doesn't really alter too much, but in future tutorials, remember that moving this on the top or the bottom can alter the shape. So we start with the amount and we lower the amount because we want a little bit. I am actually pressing Shift, and for some reason I don't see the screencast keys. Yeah, okay, now it works. I am really sorry. Yeah, so I press Shift to move this value slower. If I release Shift, basically I pass from a high value to a lower value really easily. With Shift I have more control. I can actually add more segments to create a more round detail. I think that 3 is more than enough for our model. Another thing that you can do is having this selected, going into Object, Shade Smooth. Shade Smooth simply virtually smooth the faces in a way that you don't really see every single face in a rotating model. For now, I don't really think that I need to explain this in a more detailed way. In future tutorials, I will explain how this can affect cylinders, for example, and more complex shapes. And we simply do this for all the other elements. So do you remember that if you select several elements and then you select the last one, that's going to be the active elements, all the other elements will receive the modifiers. We do exactly the same for these. We don't do with these because these are mirrored following the central element. So I select all the elements that mirror themselves in the pivot point, and last, the one where I apply this bevel modifier, I press Ctrl L and I make links with the modifier, and now all the objects have all the objects selected have the same modifiers. Of course, we actually need to Object, Shade Smooth, and we smooth them as well. Then I press A twice or Alt A to deselect them. You can actually see how I move into the 3D space simply pressing Ctrl and Shift. Now we do the same operation starting from this side element. We add a bevel modifier. We need to make a little bit, we need to lower the amount of the bevel. So I press Shift to stop it. I can actually check how much bevel I added here. That's 0.6 centimeters. So I can do the same with this one, and I can actually alter. I can alter the value directly. Then I can increase the segments to 3, and I can select the other elements that have not the modifier applied, and then last, this one that becomes the active element. Ctrl L, make links with the modifiers, and all of them are smooth. Now I simply go to Object, Shade Smooth, and I deselect everything, and I smoothed my chair. So what we do now is adding color to our model. Hopefully you found my tips useful, even if you have advanced skills in 3D modeling. Remember to subscribe to my channel, and I wait for you next week with the 5th and 6th part of these tutorials, where we will lit and render the 3D scene. Ciao!